welcome everybody. Good afternoon. After such a crazy night and day yesterday and today, for some of us, we're in crazy places. Ken Peng here, he and his, back at the kitchen table conversations, welcoming back everybody, and Felix and Serrano here with me today. All the other men are out and about somewhere doing some good work, and Julianna is helping us do the tech work and chatting with folks online as well too. So definitely chime into the conversation that we're going to have today. But I will let Felix and Serrano share some brief intros here, and then go on into the conversation that we'll have today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Serrano Robinson. You see him, his pronouns, coming out of Duluth today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Felix Martinez, pronoun he, him, and his, reporting from Dakota land in Eagan, Minnesota. Super happy and excited to be here too. Thank you.
Very cool, very cool. This is our 33rd, if I can say it right, 33rd, 333. Oh, I added one more 3 in there, but this is our 33rd Kitchen Table Conversations. Can you believe it? It's been a year already. It's been 2 years almost that we've done this, or more than 2 years now, or close to 2 years, I should say. And it's exciting to be with all of you, and for those of you who tuned into us and listened to us the last year and a half, 2 years now. This year is coming to an end. Next, in 2 weeks, we will have Sarah Curtis joining us, who's the co-executive director of Feminist Peacemakers, who's been a long-time advocate and organizer in her community, in the Native Indigenous community, and works at Feminist Peacemakers, talking to her about what it means and what it looks like to invest in the strategy of engaging men and boys in masculine identities overall. So we're really looking forward to that conversation. I think today we sort of wanted to be free-flowing, and I think one of the more important things is really to acknowledge, for those of you who haven't really heard yet, that Bell Hooks, you know, a very well-known author, activist, writer, and social justice advocate, passed away yesterday. You know, she wrote tons of feminist, Black feminist books on masculinity, on how men should be loving and caring. I was reading an excerpt for Serrano and Julianna earlier about the way in which she talked about how men needed to learn how to love and to be loved as well too, right? And that was like, I think she talked about it, how that was the first act of going into manhood and the rigid ideas of what it means to be a man and what it means to be masculine, was that you had to destroy some part of who you are, and that was the first violent act that you had to do. And that, in that book called The Will to Change, if any of you have not read it, you should read it. It's a great, great book. I think that she is able to articulate many of the things that we've talked about in terms of what it means to really practice healthy masculinity, what it means to actually transform from those rigid ideas and those quote unquote toxic ideals about what men should be and could be, and talks about how we can be loving and caring in this world to one another, right? In ways that are radical, in ways that are hopeful, in ways that are joyful, in ways that are harmonious, and also in ways that are conflictual. And conflictual meaning that you're growing in that conflict, and it's an opportunity for growth and for people's boundaries to be pushed. So I really just wanted to take this moment to do that honoring, and in light of that, also really take the opportunity to say, we were talking earlier amongst our group, is that we haven't really had an opportunity to really share who we are to all of you, right? We've done so many kitchen table conversations live with many people, and some people know of us, but I think that it's an opportunity also for us at this moment, with the 3 of us here, to really share who we are. You know, what are we about? What do our daily lives look like? Because as you all know, this platform really is about men having conversations and masculine people having conversations about how to practice healthy manhood and healthy masculinity. And that also entails like being able to actually share with one another and share with the world and share with all of you who are participating, engaging with us, who we are. We at some point are so familiar with one another because we've known each other in some ways, and we've known each other in other ways as well too, that I think we get into these conversations and we forget about that, right? So we're expressing our thoughts and ideas, but I think perhaps this can be an opportunity with us not having too many things that are at the crossroads, I should say, with the exception of honoring Bell Hooks and her legacy and what she's contributed to feminism and Black feminism, especially, and to our thinking and to our analysis and framework as well too. That we get a moment to really intimately share who we are. And so I'm going to leave it there. I think Serrano has some questions for us to take off of. Definitely, I think it's an opportunity for those of you who are engaging with us now or in the future here to ask us questions as well too. And I think that part of like being vulnerable and practicing healthy masculinity is having the ability to do that with one another as well too, right? So I don't know what other thoughts, definitely Serrano and Felix can chime in, and then we can go from there, wherever the conversation takes us, as always.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to honor Bell Hooks as well. I was not familiar with them. When I started to read and look up, like I felt a lot more like connected because it's weird you brought them up, and I saw like a post either before you brought it up or as you were bringing it up, and someone had put that like it felt like a part of them has left as well. And I think like sometimes like that's really what a deep like advocate is. Like it's kind of like that deep love that people just generally don't talk about. Like a lot of times we talk about connections of people who were like related to by blood or by way of some type of physical connection, but like we forget that people who are like deep and like open, I mean like, out in the world, advocates like doing work across the world is really like there to cushion a lot of the fall for us. So I just wanted to really honor that because like I really felt that. I felt that post when it was like a piece of me dies, because it's like, yeah, it's like one of our like leaders are gone, whether I knew who they were, but I still felt connected because I know what it means to advocate for someone and be advocated for. And that's a connection, regardless. And then when that just leaves abruptly, it's kind of like, yeah, you really do lose a piece of yourself. You lose a piece of you that probably knew how to be an advocate for yourself, a piece of you that loved the person that's gone, and a piece of you that's probably now just scared, because when advocates like leave, we kind of are forced to look at like, is someone going to become a new leader? Am I the new leader? Who is there going to be a leader in general? So I just think a lot about like just the role that advocates really play in people's lives. Like I know a lot of them, their advocacy stems from their own experience, but just being able to be out and be willing to share your experiences, like that's a lot. Like that's the part of advocacy where it takes that strength to do that. So I just wanted to honor her and honor them. And I didn't know who they were, but now I'm wishing I would have like known a little bit sooner. But there's always time to learn. So.
Yeah, it's not longer with us, but the legacy is still there. I think we all have a purpose in life to, to bring something, and to support our loved ones, support our circles, and I think that legacy is to be there. It's gonna hopefully change the life of others. It's gonna inspire other people to continue doing the work and always remember all those individuals before us that they've been doing the work that we're doing right now. That people sometimes forget about them, and we always need to live that work. All those people on the field, and also doing what they can. And sometimes when you think about leadership, you don't need to write a book. You don't need to do Facebook Live. You can do that in so many different ways. Being vulnerable, changing those stereotypes, just gender roles, be more vulnerable. And there's so many ways that we can do our part, to leave our legacy, if you want to call it that way, you know, just to be sure that your future generations have a different perspective of how men are supposed to behave. As a father of two daughters, for me, that was one of the things that me growing up as a father in the beginning, I was like, I want to have a son. It was that expectation as a man, you need to have a son. You need to be sure your last name continue. Like, for example, I'm probably jumping in, just talking a little bit about myself, but I'm like the eighth Felix in my family, so I don't know if it was expectation that maybe I should have a son and name him Felix too, just because it's expectation, and it was not that way. But at the same time, me having daughters, it was like, what, that doesn't stop me of going and playing the mud with my daughters, playing sport with my daughters, to start changing those stereotypes. So that was one of the challenges in the beginning for me, that I was like, what, I don't have sons, I have two daughters. What I can do as a father, how I can uh, teach my daughters that they can do everything that a man can, that a man can do, that are powerful as men. They have the same capabilities and same strength, if probably even more than men. So I think it was a challenge for me growing up, and now I always encourage them, to don't stop, just to keep growing, keep getting better, uh, because we need to live in societies that are more equal. There's more equality, that women can go at night, that they don't need to be scared about being raped, about being robbed, or anything like that. So men are more accountable. At the same time, men also take responsibility and make other men accountable. That's some of the challenges. But I think we'll have a purpose in life. I think the legacy of bell hooks is still there, and we need to embrace that. We need to be sure that those people are not forgotten, and us as men, we can continue doing our part to also leave our legacy, and be sure that we can live in a world free of violence, of gender-based violence. So yeah.
I think we forget about, to the point about Felix that you were saying about legacy, and like Serrano, you were talking about how parts of us leave and how advocates show up, and community organizers and people who shape the community or the world that we live in, and who put ideas and thoughts on paper, such as bell hooks or other writers who were really like impactful to society, and shaping society's ideals and trying to change it through writing. I think that to your point about advocates, is that there's so many ways to be an advocate, right? That it is not only just the way in which you are showing up in community and talking, but you need the ones who are the policymakers, you need the ones who are the writers, you need the ones who are the teachers, you need the ones who are the farmers, you need the ones who are the architects, you need the ones, so you need a whole lot and a whole role. And I think to Felix's point, that I'm going back to there, is that it takes all of us, and we forget about the small contributions that we can actually make, and we can forget about the ways in which that the change that we do actually starts with us, and it starts from our places. And I think that Bell Hook talks so often about love, like I shared earlier, and what love really means. And it's very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complex. And I think many of our conversations can be very complex and very out there in some ways, or could be very close to home for some people. But the solutions are very simple, and I remembered a conversation I had in North Minneapolis with in the Black community with Black men. And one of the young men was like, oh, that's all it takes. And the older gentleman said, all it takes is you just going back home, taking care of your family the way that you're supposed to take care of them without the violence, right? But you also have to know how to, now that you know you have a responsibility, right, to actually enact those changes. You can't just go swimming and then, or trying to rescue somebody because you don't know how to swim, right? Both of you then will drown. And what we're saying is, if we can behave and act the way that we're acting, to Felix's point there, we're actually laying the foundation and laying in the environment conditions that doesn't allow for the violence to actually happen, right? That then polices the violence that we see. And I think that every person who's contributed to creating a different world and a different environment for us without oppression, without violence, has done it in their own ways. Has done it in their own ways that, to Serrano's point, there has created ripple effects, that has created impacts, that has also, whether they be big or small, right? Whether they be big or small impacts, that they have left some mark in community or in society in a way where it has helped create different conditions, right? And we know, and I know what's so true is that the way in which we socialize men and boys, the way in which we teach women and girls in this very binary world to protect themselves and things like that from harm and whatever, and the ways in which sometimes people who cause harm are let go or not held accountable for their actions, allows for the violence to keep continuing, right? I remember like 3 weeks ago, I posted on the Men and Masculine Folks Network page a story about this gentleman, I forgot, from somewhere, where his sentence was reduced for the rape that he had committed because the judge didn't believe that what happened had a psychological impact on the survivors, right? I'm not remembering that story right, but it's on our page, and I'm like, it's those kinds of statements and it's those kinds of things that really shun and really invisibilize survivors and victims of sexual violence, who then don't come out, who then don't talk about what happens to them, and says that it's okay to rape because rape doesn't impact people's lives. Rape doesn't psychologically impair people, quote unquote, right? Or damage people in any way. But in fact, what we know is that it does. And it takes a lifetime to heal from sexual violence, from domestic violence. And I think that the contributions that each of us can make and the way in which we could raise our girls, to Felix's point there, could help change those dynamics, right? Could help create different conditions in the environment that allows for us to be more loving towards one another. And it's not just about like this act of like being kind or like being nice to one another and then loving, but I think of it as like compassionate love, but with accountability and with responsibility, right? Or it's like this conflictual love that has tensions, where we can navigate the hard places in our lives together, and that it's okay, and that it's actually growing pains for us, right? So I'm not talking about the love that is like just a free for all and everybody is going to be okay. I don't think that we're probably perhaps going to get to that place, but I do believe that in this part about love that Bell Hook talks so beautifully about, it is that we can navigate the tensions and the complexities and the contradictions and the paradoxes of life together without harming one another, without trying to subjugate one person or the other to extreme forms of violence. You know?
It's almost like there's a certain, well, there is like a discipline that comes with love as well, like especially when you think about like boundaries, like there's a discipline there. I think sometimes like we do look at love as like super mushy and not being able to like actually be stern with each other and honest and not being able to hold each other accountable. So I just really like the fact that you echoed that, that yeah, sometimes love, or not sometimes, love is that. It's also messy. It's also speaking honestly and speaking straight up to someone that you are related to or love dearly. Sometimes they don't want to hear it, but it's the fact that maybe they need to, or maybe they need to hear it for you or for your safety as well. So I just wanted to echo that. And if we wanted to, we can grab it, go right into these questions real quick. So the first one, and I'll go last with it because I'll ask them and then go last. But this first one is, where is a place that you call home? So it doesn't have to necessarily be like, you know, what is home now or where is that? But specifically for you, like where is a place? Just one place that you yourself call home.
I can start. Yeah, thank you for the question. I really appreciate that, especially for me. Uh, I was born in Puerto Rico. I live also in Dominican Republic too. Now living in Minnesota. For me, calling home, when I think in home is wherever my family is. When I think about my family, think about my daughters, my spouse. And for me also was really hard to sometimes think and when think where I feel home. It's just because I move around so much. It's been kind of hard for me to let those roots stand in one spot. So I've been able to learn from every place that I have been and take the best of it with me. So all those memories, all those positive things, good things, bad things, because we know life is not perfect. All those learnings I'll bring it with me and I carry them with me, you know. So for me, home is wherever my family is, my loved ones, my traditions, my food, the food that I grow up, you know, loving, and grabbing all these teachings and teaching it to my daughters, you know, so they can continue, you know, uh, embracing our culture, our traditions, or values, something that's so important, and the love, you know, that we need to have for each other, the love of family. You know, friends comes and go. We always have good friends that they are extended family, but home is a place that you all you feel safe, you know, that you can go there, you can cry, you know, you feel protected because there's people around you that care for you. In the same way, as a man, I want to create circles and friendships that there have those same values and those same feelings. So, you know, we can start breaking with those stereotypes that men don't cry, that men cannot show their feelings, because we cannot carry that stuff with us. You know, when we see the numbers of suicide on men are super high just because we carry all those, you know, expectations, and they're not healthy, you know, and sometimes men tend to explode more just because of that, because we carry so much, and we need to start learning how to give up that and start being be more vulnerable. But I don't want to go too out of the question. Yeah, home is wherever my loved ones are, and that could be everywhere. I don't try to, you know, stuck to one place. I take the best from everywhere I am and embrace it. So
Yeah, I would agree with uh, Felix, is that as I get older and as I think about this world and I think about um, what materials mean or what they don't mean, right? Because we live in such a materialistic world, that we're advertising every day is that you're supposed to have all these things, you know, and that if you don't have these things, that it's like worth nothing, you know. Um, and I think it is that home is about the connection to people, the relationships that are built, um, the deepening ways in which family gets built, community gets built, our relationship to land and earth, to um, Kareen's points that she had made 2 weeks ago with us, to the environment, to who we are, and to what makes us who we are. And that it isn't necessarily, home isn't necessarily something that is always physical, but that it could be something very abstract. It can be something based in relationships. It can be something based in mutual respect with another person. And so I think home is this place of comfort, this place of safety, this place of comedy, this place of conflict, this place of growth, this place of harmony, this place of like disagreement, this place of being pushed on my boundaries. That is what home is, right? That it is in that sense, rather than always the geographic sense, or like a physical place. Because I think about, for myself, if after life, where would home be? After I'm no longer in this being and in this place, where would home be? My body would be somewhere else, perhaps, depending on my choosing prior to that, or my children's choosing of where to put my body, or my ashes, or who knows what it would look like by then. And then spiritually, like, where is my home then, right? And so I think that home changes as we change on our outlook and our worldview and our relationship to the world as well too. And so I want to name that fluidity in what is home to me, and what makes home.
Thank you both. So I kind of had the same like idea when I think about like what is a place that I call home. I think it's like a split answer. So I think for me, like being born and raised like in the Bronx, I feel like that's kind of where I learned a lot of the things that I know. Right or wrong. I guess right and wrong is the better term. Where I learned most of the things, where I've like made a lot of mistakes, and where I've also um, understood a lot of things too. But I think also for me, like home is like echoing what y'all said, is like just where like my family is, honestly. And like a new part of me that feels like more home is just like a place where I just don't have to be like feel like I need to be in control, or I can just be comfortable. And that's kind of like a word that comes to mind. It's just being comfortable, um, being like with a certain family member or being at a friend's house, to where you just don't have to like pretend. I'm not one of those people who really like pretends it, even if like, because that's a human nature thing to do. So even when it does come up, like it just feels like super icky for me. Like it feels like I got like this weird like sticky shit all over me, and I just like gotta get it off. Um, but I agree, like this home for me is like where I can just, where I can simply just be me. Like I think that's one of the parts that I've really learned, like that helped me become more a better person. Is like I can really just be myself, and that in of itself is like really healthy. I can be sad, I can be happy, um, I can be up, I can be down, I can be tired, I can be frustrated, I can be excited. Um, just having that comfortability and that open space to have the comfortability. Um, is definitely like a place that I would call home. But yeah, you don't generally get that feeling like at a lot of places. Um, but it's good that like I have a couple, my home where I'm at, back home, my mom's house, or wherever like my mom and my brothers are at, or just up here at a certain friend's house. Um, but I agree, yeah, for me, home is definitely where I can be just most comfortable and probably most centered as well. Like I'm not just super stressed out. Yeah, I think a lot of that for me, like that stressed out feeling, is from having to pretend again. So I think for me, that overall sense of home is, where I can definitely be comfortable. Um, So thank y'all for that first round of questions. I got a second question before we go into some more like kind of funnier questions, but this question is more specific. So I just want to know, and this question is not like you could form this question however you want. Because even when I was typing it, I'm like, there's probably a better way of saying this, but we just gonna do it like that. So what is one thing, in your opinion, that you had to adjust or change to learn how to become a better masculine person, or just a better person in general? So what is one thing, because I know for a fact that, in the essence of people, at times when we're not our best, I don't judge. And I also know that we can learn. So I know there's a time where we weren't as understanding maybe, or as open, at least I wasn't as I'd hoped to be. So what is one thing you had to personally change or adjust, because we're humans and I don't judge a human for reacting in the way that they were reacted towards. But what is one thing you had to adjust and or learn to become a better person or a better masculine person?
For me, everything that I have learned in my life, obviously, one way or another, I realize that not everything. I don't need to say everything, but a lot of the things had to change it, because I realized that was not. There's a lot of biases, and it takes time to start realizing what are those things, and realize the communities that we live, the people that we live in, and understand the history of other people. And it's scary sometimes, because sometimes you're scared of talking or reacting because you don't want to harm other people. And that's why it's very important to, assume most of the time good intention from people, because sometimes people say things not to harm others, but just because it's a result or a reaction of the place that person grow up. So for me, of course, being a father was one of those moments that made me realize a lot about, how many unhealthy habits I had, as a man, and how much advantage I took of those privileges that men have and abuse and use it. And me being a father of two daughters, it made me realize twice, and obviously my spouse too, is like, I need to change, and that change is not easy, because you need to give up a lot of things that make things easier for men. So being in that situation, that you realize that, what, this is not fair, why men are taking the best chunk of the cake, and we're not allowing other people to have that same, same size of that piece of cake. So it's something that takes time. That's something that's still working on it. It's something that now I'm more careful with my daughters when I have conversations with my nephews, with the men around me, just to be sure they're aware also of those, privilege that men have and we abuse. So we do things always thinking ahead of time, and realizing, that this is not Felix world. This is a world that we need to share with all the people around us. And because we all dream of living in a community, in a place that everybody feels safe, that everybody will respect it. But unfortunately, that's not the world that we live, And as men, the more I think about this question, is the more confused I get, just because it's not easy. It's not there's an answer. We know what that answer, but the change that we want to make is not that easy. So I personally just try to think in others, not necessarily in me, and being sure that people around me feel safe, that people around me feel comfortable. In the same way, if they want to come to me and tell me something, they know that, the confidentiality always going to be there, that I want to respect them, that sometimes I don't need to have an answer for them, but being able to be there and listening to them and say, you know what, Serrano, I'm here for you, brother. You know what, if you at any time you feel uncomfortable, you need to call me. Here's my phone number. So it's been vulnerable. It's been open. It's creating stronger bonds between each other with respect and love. and values, so we can live in a, in a better place. But my journey as a man, it's up and down, it's everywhere. I mean, the more I think about how I behave, I found more things that are really not healthy, and it takes time to grow up and become a better man. That's not something that jump happen from one day to another, but it's on us to start thinking about that and being sure that we start making those right steps and putting that seed there so future generations can learn and be better. So I think I'm everywhere, but yeah, I think hopefully I answered that question some way or another. So yeah, thank you.
I think, thanks, Felix. I think, for me, if I think back and I look back at um, it resonates so much uh, to what I think we were talking about, and I was talking and sharing about in terms of love that Bell Hooks was mentioning, that we had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to do that in practicing healthy masculinity and developing new ideas and new expressions for myself that weren't necessarily always visible out in the community from the men and masculine folks in my lives, or even in society, right? Because we don't even actually have really a lot of really good examples of healthy masculinity and manhood that are being practiced in a way that is genuine, caring, and for me, at some point along the way, I learned that I had to stop saving other people, and that it wasn't about saving anybody, but it was about saving myself and learning to love who I am. Because this world had taught me not to love me. This world had taught me not to expect others to love me, to expect others to care for me, to expect others to just know what it is that I want, to Felix's points there. Uh, and so therefore, I didn't need to know how to do any of that, right? The act of love for myself is I didn't need to know how to do that, because others were, for me, whether it is in my community or it is in society, but in patriarchy for sure, in patriarchal cultures, which is everywhere, is that it teaches us as men and boys and masculine identities that we need not know how to love. Others will do that for us, right? Um, and I learned that, oh, like in the advocacy work that I was doing, whether it was sexual violence or domestic violence, it wasn't about any of the saving. It wasn't about the protecting. It was about where am I at? Who am I? The vulnerability that you were talking about, Felix, was learning who I was. Because this world, this society has taught me to be something else, to be what it is considered to be a man is to be these things. And then if I didn't live up to those things, then I wasn't a man. And when I wasn't a man, what then would I be, right? And I didn't want to be a woman because I already knew what happened to women. So when I learned that I could actually be myself, and that being myself meant I needed to actually understand myself, and not only understand myself, but actually love who I am and take care of my feelings, take care of my thoughts, take care of my behaviors, be responsible for my behaviors. That inward journey and continuous inward journey to this day, I think it is what helps me practice how to be a better person in this world, how to do the kind of loving and caring and community building that I've done and am still doing. Uh, and it is without its challenges. And it is without its challenges because there are moments in my life where I'm just like, what am I doing? How do I get out of that habit that I was so conditioned to be in? How do I get out of that thinking of like feeling uneasy or uncomfortable because my masculinity is being challenged at this moment by my partner or some other queer or woman folk in my life, even though I know that they're not doing it intentionally and they're being helpful, but I just feel so uneasy because it's like I should know those things. The example that I've often give to all of you about, like, I don't know anything about automobiles or cars or how to fix it or whatever, and if somebody knew who was a woman or a queer person who knew more than me, I would feel so uneasy about that, right? So it's like the learning and practicing how to be healthy in that means I needed to let that go. To Serrano's question is, I needed to let that go, and I needed to not that let that those, like, I would want to say, I don't want to say stupid ideas, but it is like those stupid ideas and thoughts about, like, well, you must not be a man then if you don't know automobiles and you don't know how to fix this, you know. But it's like I'm saying it just to myself. I'm like policing myself into that role because that was what I was taught through media, through social media, through teachers, through my parents, through grandparents, through the schools, everywhere that I went, right, as I grew up. So that is, it's a lot to Felix, what Felix is saying, and it takes a lot of energy to do that inward journey.
Mm-mm. It definitely is a lot. I feel like it's not even a landing spot either. It's one of those things that it's a journey, things that you learn, you make a mistake, then you learn and hope not to make a mistake. And you're good for like, you know, a couple of years, that mistake. And I agree that there was just so much like to that question that has been changed or that needs to have changed. Um, but for me, I say just the essence of being honest, like, and what all that comes with, and just being honest in general, like being honest about things that I'm scared about, things that I'm not scared about, honest about like my emotions, how I'm feeling. Um, so I think that's one of the things that's been really hurtful to people around me. It's like not being very honest around how I'm feeling, but then they would have to deal with obviously how I'm feeling, right? Which is totally fucked up and completely confusing to somebody who's on the other end of that. Because you're not letting them know that you're even upset, what that's about. You're just having to deal with the fact that you're upset because it's easy for you. Um, so I think that's also been like a part of like the stigma of like this lying or not telling the truth is doing what's easy. So I think that's like a part of like what helped me change, what helped me think to make that journey is to understand that I have to do things that are hard for myself, especially because they should be easy for others because it is my journey. Like it's not I really understood, like I really understood that it's really not for others to bear. Like I'm so like not even sick like to myself because I like, you know, you have to like still love yourself through that. But some of the shit that I've like done, I'm just like, no, that's not it. Like people, that's why now it's like an extreme boundary of mine. Like to other people back and forth. Like, no, I understand that you've gone through things, and me talking to myself, I understand that you've gone through things and things haven't been good for you, not perfect at all, but at any moment you shouldn't help like create that snowball effect, or start it. So that's just for me being honest like about who I am as well. I think that links to being honest about how you are. I think sometimes when you leave parts out about who you are, or where you leave a certain piece out thinking that it's not bothering you or that it's not as serious, or um, maybe it's not, you know, viable to the conversation, that you are indeed still hurting yourself and others around you. So that's deeply one of the things that I had to just like take a step back and be like, yeah, that's not really like healthy at all. It was easy, and that's confusing too, right? It's like why why are there things like that are easy? Like why is it easy but bad, you know? But that's when I think about like what you said earlier, Peng, is that discipline that comes with love. Is that love don't always come easy at all. Like, and that's the part about it, is like you have to talk about what's making you feel bad, especially around your partners, people who love you. So that way they can know that you're feeling bad and that they're not like at the disposal of that. Um, you know, you are supposed to be truthful about who you are, where you've been, and those things, so that way people can know you better too. I think as men too, we have this like weird like stoppage of where we let people in, like to a certain degree, or I have like just had a stoppage of where I go deep to let people in. And that has deeply affected me and my relationships with other people. Because people are always generally open, or this is like past time, people are always generally open, and I would just be like 2 words in or not as open, and that's messed up because people are choosing to be vulnerable with you. And we got to remember that that's a choice too. Like somebody being vulnerable around you is them choosing to like let themselves go and basically like fall into your arms, like emotionally, you know? So for me, like to not return that or to even like use that as like energy to a degree, was really, really harmful. So like I just dropped it, not dropped it, but had to learn that completely, like what telling the truth really does to me, what it does to people around you, how hard it can be, yes, but how easy it is, like in the long run. You know, you generally obviously don't have to come back to those situations, to those things when you're being honest, to those feelings, because lying comes with more steps because it's like mysterious and all these things, and it's very hurtful. So people feel their intuitions, and you know, when you really tell the truth, people can feel that too. You know, so there's no like deep intuition of, oh, this person isn't telling the truth, especially when you have the history of being honest, being open, and just generally like being vulnerable to people you say you love. That's been like my thing. It's like, I can't say that I love you if I can't be vulnerable around you, or if I can't like be open to you, or if I can't be truthful with you. I feel like I failed at me saying that I love you if I couldn't do those things. So thank y'all for having that part of that conversation with that question. That was a really, that was a really deep. I feel like that question could have definitely went more ways and deeper ways for sure, but I appreciate y'all for grasping on to that. So with the last 10 minutes, I would love to just do some general questions that we do with our youth, just to get to know each other better. So for this specifically, you'll just have to choose a number between 1 and 200. There are no rules, but there are unspoken rules. So the unspoken rules are, if you don't like a question, you can ask for another one. If it doesn't apply to you, ask for another one. Like, for example, if I ask a question about a sibling, you're an only child, that means it doesn't apply to you. You know, so if it doesn't apply, if you don't like it, or if you're just like, I don't really have an answer for this, you're way more than welcome to ask for another answer or ask for another question or pass. So either of you can choose to go first, and then I will ask the question, and then we'll go in a rotating circle like that.
I can go. 5 is what's coming to me.
5. So 5 is, what was your favorite toy growing up? And if you can go a little bit deeper, why?
5 is like during that age too, 5 years old or so. When I was growing up, my parents couldn't afford a lot of toys because we were living below poverty, I should say. Sure, this might resonate with the both of you, but I've always, and I didn't ever get it, right? I always wanted those Tonka trucks, you know, those big yellow Tonka trucks. I was so envious of my friends who got it, and they couldn't afford it, but they were able to get it from the Salvation Army, right? Because Toys for Tots, the drives that they always do at the Salvation Army, and then like families who weren't well off or whatnot could sign up and go and get gifts from the Salvation Army through Toys for Tots drive. And I was like surprised that my parents never picked it, but I've always wanted it. I don't know why. I think it was because it was big and yellow, and it was like you could carry dirt in it, and you know the way in which you can put things in it and then like move it around. And it wasn't like one of those small Hot Wheel cars, but it was big, you know. So it was just something that I really loved, but I never got it. And I'm like, I saw one the other day, which is so funny. I saw one the other day and I was like, maybe I should buy it for my sons, but enviously like buy it for me only. But I'm like, do they even want it? Do the boys these days even know what a Tonka truck is? Like my generation of folks, that was like the thing for me. It was a toy that I never got, and it was something that I was very envious that my friends got by chance.
Sorry to interrupt, but yes, I feel that Pheng, I have my Tonka truck, and those they used to be built like in real metal. I mean, I remember my Tonka truck. I was in middle school and it's still going on. You know, it was rusty, but still work. You know, so yeah, I think everybody loved you know, those Tonka trucks. So yeah, so I'll pick a number. I'll go with 25.
Got you. And then Pang, I could be wrong. I could be, but I think you should go and buy yourself one of those Tonka trucks. I think you should. But number 25 is, so if you could be a cartoon character for a week, who would it be? So if you could be a cartoon character for a week, who would it be?
Wow, a cartoon character. Wow. Well, you got me with that one. That'll tell everyone my age as soon as I start talking about what cartoon, you know. But I used to watch a lot of cartoons, so if I need to pick one, I think thinking in that age, I think it was Woody Woodpecker. I think that was one that I used to, because it was probably hyper as me. I was everywhere. I was always playing, doing stuff. So I always got in trouble because of that. And I was always making jokes and doing, you know, jokes to my friends. So, you know, at younger age, if I could relate to a cartoon character, I think it will be something like that. So yeah, not probably the most healthy one, but I can see myself how I was back in the day. That was me probably.
Nice, thank you. And then I'll choose 43. And I just have to say this for the record. No, I don't remember all the questions. Somebody asked me that before, and I was like, no, I don't take time to just look at the questions. Okay, so it says, using one word, how would you describe your family? Using one word. To be honest, I would say, because this word comes to mind all the time, but I would say hilarious. 2 words, hilariously dysfunctional. Like in a good way. Like I feel like if you have to be honest. So dysfunctional, but in a way that so functionally dysfunctional. Maybe. No, but just I would say that's one word to describe like my family. Like we're not perfect. You know, there's conflicts in within the family. But one thing we really do know how to do is come together. We really know how to have fun. And there's never like a dull day. Like even in days of the conflict, I have one of those families where there's days of conflict, and in the same day, there's nothing. There's also laughter and love and fun and games. So I would definitely say, yeah, for me, like hilariously dysfunctional. Just for the sake of the honesty of how our family grew up together, but just the fact that we are still so close knit. It's like that cousin that jokes on you all the time, which can like bring clearly can bring harm, but will have your back in an instant, right? Like will not let another person even go close to saying the stuff that they would say to you, you know. So that like band-aid type of love. So that would be me for sure.
Thank you for that, Serrano. Thank you for that. I think that, you know, and just summing up here, I don't know where the two of you are at, but I appreciate this conversation so much. We started out with honoring Bell Hooks, and it really led to, through her legacy, to Felix's point earlier, as I reflect on this conversation, it was really about the vulnerability that she speaks about so often in her many writings, the love that she speaks about in her many writings, the teaching men how to love and learning to love one another as well too. And so I think that in honoring her legacy and their legacy as a queer pan identified person who will be remembered is the ways in which we build community. And that means that we have to actually get to know one another as well too. And so I really appreciate this conversation. We're looking forward to 2 weeks from now, on right before New Year's. Right before New Year's, Sarah Curtis will be joining us, and she's a phenomenal leader. Looking forward to the conversation with her and what she'll bring to the table, and what she brings with her as well too, and how the conversation will be shaped through learning from her and engaging with her and engaging with all of us. And so much appreciation to Julianna for all the behind the scenes work as always, to Felix and Serrano for being here and participating, engaging with each other, and with those of you who have listened, appreciating all of you for tuning in into the conversation. And for those of you who are watching the conversation thereafter, always share with us your thoughts and ideas, and definitely let us know how what conversations we should be having as men and masculine folks. What are the questions that we should be thinking about as we practice healthy masculinity? And the hopes is that you all can continue these conversations yourself, and these questions that even Serrano put at us and we all talked about, for us to actually do those kinds of questions within our own homes as the holidays approach. And if you are able to get with your family in person or virtually, you could do it the same way that we're doing here to continue the conversations around masculinity and manhood and what that all means. As always, we appreciate our philanthropy partners, the Noble Foundation and Blue Cross Blue Shield, for continuing to support us so that we can actually have the kitchen table conversations bi-weekly for everyone. Until then, everybody take care and stay warm or stay cool or wherever you are. Stay calm.